Good morning, Mr. Chairman, esteemed members of the committee. Thank you for your time this morning on a very busy schedule. As an attorney, I actually enjoyed the discussion on the bar, probably less painful for me than you guys. We're here to talk about the role that California plays in the governance of Californians. Call of a convention is something that this legislature has supported by overwhelming majority in the past. In 2014, this legislature passed H.R. 1, which called for a convention on a particular subject. This is a similar type of application, calling for the same procedures, the same safeguards are in place, the same measures for calling the convention, approving that call, and for limiting a convention to the called matters, and also the same procedures for ratification. So much of the debate that was had during the debate over AJR 1 has been had in this body. I realize you'll have some different membership, but I just wanted to refresh your memories. The main purpose of this application is to reset the balance between the states and the federal government. As a lifelong California resident, I grew up in Los Angeles in Southern California, now reside in Grass Valley, California. What I've seen over my lifetime in this state is much of the state's power over matters that affect our citizens has been drawn away from the California legislature, where I place my trust, and put in people in Washington, D.C., who are thousands of miles away from us. Even our own legislators often reside majority of their time thousands of miles away from us. And there has arisen a disconnect between California and the other states and the federal government. 72% of Americans today, that's nonpartisan, 72%, say that the federal government does too much and intrudes too much on our lives. Americans, by overwhelming majority, support their local governments, support their cities, their counties, support their state governments, but not the federal government. Congressional approval is at an all-time low. So it is time for the states to rise up on an individual and collective basis to take their power back, their rightful power from the federal government. The federal government was originally granted limited enumerated powers so that esteemed members of legislatures like you could decide the policies that affected the citizens of their states. Today, that's what we come before you, is to ask you to step up, to join with the 7 other states, including Oklahoma, that just passed this today, and to move towards the 34 states, calling for a resolution for a convention of states to discuss fiscal responsibility, to discuss limitations on the scope, power, and jurisdiction of the federal government, and to discuss the potential for term limits for members of Congress and the federal judiciary. Now, you'll hear a lot of opposition come before you today and talk about the idea of a runaway convention. I think you've already dealt with that in the 2014 session. It's also important to know the origin of those arguments. They come from an organization called the John Birch Society, decades ago chased from reasonable political discourse for issues of racism and anti-Semitism. So I think those arguments are long discredited, and especially before this legislature. And with that, I'd ask you for your support.